In this video, I'm going to have a look at a way to kind of degrunge a grunge font. It's still going to be grungy, but it's not going to have all of those little parts inside of it because, you know, when you have a grunge font and you leave it exactly the way you type it out, you can often see something like this where you've got all these tiny little paths. And basically, you just hear your blade punching the material. And, you know, because a lot of times the little space, the little shapes are too small to even, you know, end up being something you can weed out. So typically what happens when somebody has a grunge font, they're like, can we just get rid of it? Well, remember a couple of things. First of all, there's a lot of free fonts out there. The easiest thing is just pick a different font that doesn't have all this. I mean, there's some that look grungy without all this stuff, but let's say, no, it's got to be this font. So, okay. What we do here, I have the word to, or the phrase to-do list listed here, and I'm going to split the text by lines. Split text, split by lines. Okay, now then, this one down here, because there's no interior shapes, you see up here, you know, it's got an O and D in the to-do, so those are called interior paths. This one down here, this list doesn't have any of their interior. So as a result, you could do it this simple. Just select the text, and then on the style panel, just change it from normal to blackout. And when you do that, it gets rid of all those little tiny interior shapes, and then you're good to go. However, up here, you can't do the same thing on this to-do because if you did, you would also lose the middle of the D and the O. So there's a different way to handle this one, and that's what I'm going to show you. So the first thing is to make a copy of it. So I'm going to select it and go to Copy, and then right-click, Paste in Place. So now I have two of them. Now one of them, the one up here, I'm going to hide it and just work with this one down here. And what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to do the blackout, but when I do the blackout, as I mentioned before, it got rid of everything. But that's okay. I'm going to come back and use this other one to retrieve those middle of those other letters. And so once I do that, but this is an important thing. Take note of this. You want to write this down because you'll forget. Right after you do the blackout, you need to come up and do a path union. If you don't do that, then later on when you get ready to merge everything back together again, you lose the interior shape. So do that, and then you'll notice on the style panel way back to normal, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, so now that I'm going to hide that layer and come back and turn on my prior layer. And then with this one, I'm going to go to Object, Break Apart. Now it looks like it's done the same thing, but it hasn't. Instead, what I have here, let me come over here and do Show Outlines Only on the document panel. You can see everything is still there. It's just broken up into individual pieces. So what I want to get from this version are the interior of the letters that I still need back again. So the best way to do, notice when I hover, like right in the middle of the letter, it will select that. So that's, instead of you trying to get in the middle and try to do whatever, just put your cursor right in the middle. Then I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I'm going to select this one, and this one, and this one. And then I'm going to right-click, Group. And now then I can basically come back here to the one that I just did. I've got the group protected. I can just delete that layer. Okay. Then I can turn back on the one that I did the path union on. Now that I have what I want, I can just select it. And here's the reason why. If I come back here and show outlines only, it still doesn't show the middles. It would cut, but you always want to do basically a merge on it so that the interior paths cut before the exterior paths. So that's what I do. I come back, I do an object merge, which is the opposite of break apart, and it brings that back. So that's how that one works. However, not all grunge fonts are the same. So coming over here, I have a different one that I used. And in this case, it is too grungy. You really should just pick a different font, but I am going to kind of show you what I mean. So let's take this word list. Again, you know, there's no interior parts. And so if you wanted to just get rid of the stuff in the middle and you try to just come over and let's bring out the style thing and you try to just change that from normal to blackout, it gets rid of some of it, but most of it is still there. And so basically what you're dealing with here is something that's not going to cut very well. Let me zoom in on it so that we can look at it more closely. And you can see that this is just kind of a wreck. And even, you know, if you were able to get rid of interior parts, and I'll show you how you could do that, you're still left with a very jagged outside edge, which could be very difficult to cut. I mean, some of these little pieces, of course, it all depends on how large, you're making the cut, but it's not a good idea. One thing you can do is use the eraser tool, and then so I'm going to come over and click on the eraser, make sure I have inverse selected, and then circle so that it's kind of smoother, and then pick whatever size you want. And then you can just come in here and click to close it up, or you can drag your mouse, if you want to. The only thing is, you're changing the font. It's not going to be the original one because you're doing this, but you know what? Maybe that's okay. It kind of all depends. You can also go back to just regular select mode and go to Path Simplify. And in this window, you can basically try to get rid of some of the nodes. Like I'm going to turn on Show Nodes, and right now I've got 508. And you can see that if I were to go ahead and apply it at a very high threshold, then it's going to bring it down to 114. And on a grunge font, it's probably not going to be noticeable if it makes any kind of changes. If you have something, if I were trying to do this on, say, like the Samantha font, which is so elegant, then you probably couldn't use something as high as 90 because it would really distort it. But again, on a grunge font, you're not going to notice it so much. But this will help it cut smoother. So you can go ahead and click on OK, and it will make changes. But then, as you see, you still got problems here, like it kind of cut open this part of the T and stuff. So you'd still need to use the eraser tool. But at the same time, do a test cut on something inexpensive, and then you can see whether or not it's reasonable to go ahead and cut it or not. So anyway, I hope this helps. And if you have any questions, as always, just let me know.